Hey, good morning. Today, what I'd like to do is just have a conversation about the transition from owning a business to selling a business. And I don't want to get into the specifics when it comes to the LOIs, NDAs, closing day. Those are all things that I think we could talk about in the future. What I want to talk about is the mental component of going from business ownership to the next chapter of life. And that is one that needs to have some deep preparation for. It's easy to be just in the hustle of the transaction. And what I've noticed is post the sale of a business, owners go through these mental dilemmas of what's next. And they've spent their whole life hustling, they've spent their whole life working, and they're ready to check out. They're ready to spend time with their grandkids and do yard work and expand their horizons in ways that they never have. But I don't think that I know that they have not mentally prepared for life post acquisition. And, first of all, when we're preparing to sell a business, one of the mental dilemmas that owners go through is they don't want their employees to know, they don't want their competitors to know that they're even thinking about selling. And so, even during the transitional stage, there is a lot of mental anguish. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of um, they're still in the hustle, even though they're transitioning out of the business, even though they're working to exit the business. They're still in the mental game of both running and or operating or managing the business, and now operating, managing, communicating about the transition of their business from their hands to the next person's hands. So they're mentally distracted. And then what happens is there's all this hustle, all of this movement and momentum that happens. And then there's a closing day. And then you wake up, the money's deposited into your account, and you don't have to go to work. Now, sometimes there's a transition period. In fact, most of the times there's a transition period. But regardless when that day is, there is a day where they ask you, we appreciate you. You're no longer needed to be here. And people in retirement go through this too. The difference is business ownership is so time consuming that it takes up a huge part of your life. And if you're married, your spouse, it takes up a big part of your spouse's life as well. Everything is revolving around there. One of the running jokes in my home is that when there's a holiday, we have to let dad know because he's going to get us up for school. Because you don't even realize it. I mean, when you're owning a business, holidays aren't the same because, especially if you love what you do, you're just on the grind. If you love people and you're networking and you're gaining momentum, you're not thinking of holidays in the same way. You're not looking forward to the weekends. My favorite day of the week is Monday. And so, as a business owner, and Monday, just as a caveat, is because there's so much opportunity ahead. The week is just beginning. There's so much to do. There's so much to get done, and it's exciting. It's electrifying. I really do love Mondays. And um, the owners, those of you who have experienced this, you are in the constant grind, even in that transitional period, and then there becomes a day where you wake up and you don't go to work, and the phone's not going to ring. There's nothing to check in on. And those are times that you have to prepare for and in different ways. So going back to I look forward to Mondays. Business owners, you know, we don't look toward retirement in the same way that somebody who has had the luxury of being a W 2 employee their whole life does. They're working for somebody else, and they may even be working for you, and they're looking forward to a retirement to exit working for you. You don't exit working for yourself. You're still stuck with you in retirement. And uh and so I just want you to be thinking about that next chapter of life. And I think the people that I see that flourish the most in it have a game plan. They've got people around them that are helping them with what is the next part of their life going to look like. And they're planning trips, they're planning upsizing their home or downsizing their home. There's usually a Florida home involved, especially if you're in the Midwest. There's some vacations involved, but there's some long-term strategy, both financial and recreational, involved in that post-acquisition mode. And so, those of you who are thinking about selling their business, thinking about selling your business, or you're in the middle of it, one thing that you need to be doing right now is at least start planning the next 2 to 5 years of what's going to be taking up major blocks of your time. Because if you don't plan for that, there's a potential spiral of regret that can be mitigated by simply not having excessive downtime during the next 2 to 5 years, because you're not wired that way. And so I would be as abundant with what you can do with your time. There obviously rest if you can and when you can, but make sure to stay busy, make sure to be active. And I would say some of the things you can do that maybe you haven't done in the past is join different memberships. Like, I mean, hopefully a lot of business owners are already members of, private golf clubs, um, pickleball clubs, gym memberships. And I would say obviously continue those things, but look to venture out of that. Look at, things like boat, you know, clubs and different entrepreneurial post acquisition clubs where you're networking with, and those could be car rallies. There's just a bunch of different communities that you can get involved with, different types of people that maybe you haven't been able to rub shoulders with, who have been through what you're going through, and can help fill that time bracket that used to be consumed with owning a business. And so that's all I have for you today. Be planning for that, and be filling your time, and be prepping for that, and enjoy it, take a deep breath, soak it in. You've earned it, and get ready for it. So that's all I got. Take care.